parkdistrict.com for screening dates and locations.
This report is brought to you by Lowe's. When it's time to replace your appliances, Lowe's has you covered. Get up to 40% off select major appliances. Plus, save up to an extra $100 off on select laundry pairs. Valid through February 25th, while supplies last.
1690 WVON remembers the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr.
I am black, beautiful, proud. I must be respected. I must be protected. I am somebody.
You were a beacon of light, not only for Chicago, but for the nation. From our family to yours. Rest in peace, Reverend Jackson. Job well done.
Live from the Xfinity Studios, it's the station that America listens to. WVON, Berwyn, Chicago. It's Rufus Williams on Chicago's essential storyteller, WVON.
The views expressed on our programs are not necessarily those of WVON, Midway Broadcasting Corporation, or our participating sponsors.
If you're not out of the bed yet, then what are you waiting for? It's the WVON Morning Show with Rufus Williams on 1690 WVON.
Every day you're walking by and I can see how you shine. Here I am alone with nothing but a dream that you are mine. Just exactly what I'll do, I don't know, baby, but I gotta find a way to reach you. Tell me what I gotta do to get to your house. Tell me where I gotta go and make to be with you. Tell me what I gotta say and make to speak to your heart. Tell me what I need to know tonight.
Keep your eyes on the road and both hands on the steering wheel. We will not be held responsible for any accidents. It's the WVON Morning Show with Rufus Williams on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
The Audio Genius.
Get in on the conversation with Rufus Williams and the Morning Show at 591-1690. We are the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Good morning, and welcome to Tuesday. It is the 24th of February, the year 2026. It is the Rufus Williams Show. I am Rufus Williams, and as always, thrilled, delighted, and absolutely excited to be here with you this morning. I'm not even saying hello to Titus this morning because I don't have time. I have on the phone, on the line, a man waiting who should never be waiting. It is none other than our Mayor, Brandon Johnson. Mayor Johnson, welcome back to WVON.
Hey, good morning, Rufus. Thanks for having me back, man.
It's always good to have you. You're welcome every morning. When you get cornflakes for the kids, just call in and we'll talk about some things, catch up on it.
I promise. I got 2/3 of them out the house. I got one more left, so as we prepare for school today.
Mayor, look, Soldier Field has been the home for the Chicago Bears since 1971. It's the NFL's oldest stadium. It faces potential replacement, and there's been all this conversation about the Bears going to Arlington Heights, the Bears going to Indiana, the Bears going to Iowa. But it seems that left out of this conversation is the obvious thing, that it's the Chicago Bears, and they're here in Chicago. What are your thoughts, and where do we stand on keeping the Bears here at home?
Yeah, well, first of all, Rufus, everywhere I go, Chicagoans want the Bears to remain in Chicago. I have not gone anywhere in this city since I've been mayor where people have said, let's just, move on from this historic organization. And as you may recall, prior to me getting elected, The Bears purchased the property out in the suburbs. But once, Kevin Warren was brought in as president and CEO, we began to have conversations. And back in 2024, ownership, the McCaskies, along with the president and CEO, Kevin Warren, we all stood on the stage together, outlining a plan that would keep the Bears in Chicago and keep them on the lakefront. That proposal, I believe, is still the best plan and proposal that has been presented. And, in order for it to materialize, though, we need partnerships, right? I mean, this is not something that we can do alone. As you have seen in the other state, their legislature has tried to lure the Bears out of Chicago. You have some suburban communities working with the legislature to lure the Bears out of Chicago. Chicago needs our partners in Springfield to work with us to make sure that this historic organization remains on the lakefront, which, by the way, is the #1 tourist destination anywhere in the state of Illinois, that entire campus. So that's the best place for the Bears to remain. I've made that position very clear. And so did the organization as we presented a proposal and a plan that would have done just that.
Look, our lakefront is second to none. It's a shame that the Lucas Museum isn't there, but we lost that battle and we shouldn't lose another one. When we think about the Bears and, the fact that Soldier Field is there, it doesn't have a cover. It can't be a place where the Super Bowl is played. I'm looking at numbers that approach $4.6 billion for a new stadium. Where does it stand in conversation with Springfield? I don't disagree that partnerships are going to be needed, but, we hear the stories about how much of a surplus Indiana has. Haven't verified it, don't know how they got it. But what are you hearing from Springfield in terms of the partnership or how we keep them here?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just emphasize, whether it's Arlington Heights or Hammond, Indiana, it's not Chicago. And the unique thing about the proposal that we put forth in 2024, I've always said that we have to have a public benefit and a public use for it, right? And so a dome stadium would give us access to year-round activities that we could attract, from the Big Ten, obviously the Super Bowl, other big concerts that we could have year-round. The economic impact that a dome stadium on the lakefront would have on the city of Chicago, we're talking about over $8 billion in income alone, thousands of jobs, much like what the Obama Center has done, where minority-owned, led construction companies, as well as businesses, which include professional services, they have overwhelmingly had strong participation. The proposal on the lakefront would have done the same thing. Because again, Rufus, that entire campus there, that museum campus, from the south end all the way to the north end of the lakefront, it is, again, the top tourist destination in the entire state of Illinois. It's an economic engine. And here's what, is unfortunately has not been discussed, that the Bears, that number that you mentioned, the Bears were prepared to put in 72% of the finances just to build the stadium. And keep in mind, the stadium is owned by the city of Chicago, by the public. Everywhere else, they would outright own the stadium. And so our investment for this stadium is an investment back in the city of Chicago. Nowhere in any public-private partnership would you see the private entity put in almost 2/3 of the investment that the public would ultimately own. If the Bears stay in Chicago, based upon the proposal that we have put forward, the city of Chicago would own the stadium. The Bears would be renting from us, not to mention the entire transformation that we would develop down there, 20% more green space. And so I think the last note here is that right now what's being discussed in Springfield is essentially a tax break for billionaires, right? We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars and maybe upwards of billions of dollars, that the tax breaks that would go to private entities, those dollars that would otherwise go to public spaces like your schools, parks, and libraries. That's not the proposal that's on the table here in Chicago. Again, 72% of the finance, $2.7 billion, would go from the Bears to build a stadium that the city of Chicago, the taxpayers, would own.
Well, Mayor, where's the rub? What is Kevin Warren saying? I've had time. Hey, he's been in the studio. Good guy, smart guy. What is he saying? What are the Bears saying? Where's the rub, and why can't we conclude this being and them staying here?
Well, we need partners. I mean, that's the bottom line. Again, with the president and CEO, Kevin Warren, along with the McCaskies, you can go back and look at it, Rufus. We were all on the stage together where we put forth a proposal. What I'm encouraged by is that, leader, State Representative Cam Buckner has been very clear about, the city of Chicago and the district that he represents, which the stadium is in his district, that Chicago has to be a priority and Chicago has to be made and kept whole in this situation. So the rub is ultimately going to come down to, will we have the same type of partnership that we're seeing in other places of the state to ensure that the people of Chicago are not ignored in all of this? I mean, again, we're talking about a public-private partnership, which that's what we have been encouraging, and that's what many people say is the best pathway to create economic vibrancy for our city and for our state. That entire museum campus needs infrastructure dollars. In fact, the infrastructure dollars that we would need to improve the infrastructure on that campus, and everybody knows how bad it is over there. The ingress, egress, it's just terrible. The estimate was around $300 to $400 million. Just in Arlington Heights alone, they're talking $900 million for the infrastructure needs, right? And so, again, the rub has to come down to, as Leader Buckner and other Chicago legislators have made clear to me, that the Bears belong in Chicago, and that anything that is done to spur economic development in other places around the state, Chicago should be in that conversation and be prioritized as the economic engine for the city and for the state.
I hope so. The issues you speak of about the lakefront and what's there, the ingress, the egress, those are going to be issues that are going to need to be fixed no matter what. So it makes sense to do that as it relates to the stadium as we look forward and try to read through it. And I don't want you to negotiate necessarily in public, but who's going to benefit the most from this? Is this an issue of the Bears and the Bears ownership? Is this an issue for someone else? I do know that losing a major franchise would be bad for the city. And there's a lot of reasons why we want to keep them there. But is greed the real factor here?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. Rufus, I wish I had an absolute answer there. But again, $900 million that is being offered to Arlington Heights, I know that Chicago legislators are firm in their position in standing up for the interests of their residents, their constituents, my constituents, our constituents, and asking Chicago legislators to vote against our own interests. That's just a losing battle, right? And, I want to just offer up one other quick historic note that the way in which we could help support and finance this stadium is through a mechanism called ISFA. It's the Illinois Stadium Finance Authority, which this authority is designed to build stadiums. That's all they're able to do. So whatever revenue is generated from ISFA, which was configured at the very end of Mayor Harold Washington's reign as mayor, which spurred economic development and led to the building of where the White Sox play. And so that mechanism still exists. There are ways in which the stadium can be financed by ISFA, which that's what its purpose is to do. That's all it can do. It can't build hospitals. It can't build schools. If it could, I would certainly do that. But it can only build stadiums, along with the finances from the family. The city of Chicago would have a dome stadium on the lakefront with infrastructure revitalization that would open up that entire campus, the museum campus, for more tourism. And here's the good thing. We would own the stadium. The taxpayers would actually own the stadium. There's nowhere else in the country where 72% of the investments are coming from the ownership, and then the other finance is coming from a mechanism and a tool that was designed to build stadiums. And then the stadium would be owned by the city of Chicago. That's the proposal that was put forth in 2024. And Rufus, keep in mind, this was after they bought the property in Arlington Heights. So if they were determined to go out into the suburbs, they would have never made that commitment, because they could have just simply bought the property and kept going. And that was done before I was elected. But I worked with the family. I worked with the ownership to put forth a package that we can agree upon. Park District land owned by the city, where the Bears would pay rent. We would improve the infrastructure all along the lakefront. And then, of course, those jobs would stay right here in Chicago. And so, look, I know that I had a couple of conversations last night with some Chicago legislators. I know Leader Buckner has been very forthright in ensuring that Chicago is prioritized. And this is going to really take a partners in Springfield to make sure that Chicago is prioritized, or at least we're in the best possible position to keep the Bears in Chicago, because that initial proposal almost 2 years ago, that's what the family said they wanted to do.
Look, you're for it. You tell us that Leader Buckner is for it. What is it that we, the citizens, the people, should be doing to keep track of and to help pursue this?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is just I would encourage your listeners to continue to, ask their state rep and their state senator to prioritize Chicago. Look, we are the economic engine of this state, the economic engine of this region. Sports and entertainment, as you know, Rufus, you've been in this industry. I mean, it's grown extensively, even since your time. The amount of jobs and opportunities that come with a dome stadium on the lakefront that opens up that entire campus to attract people from all over the world. It's just, again, it's a public benefit and a public use. Continue to educate themselves on that initial proposal. Go back and look at what was proposed in 2024. Hundreds of thousands of jobs for people in the entire region. More people benefit regionally from the city of Chicago keeping the Bears than them leaving, right? Chicago doesn't benefit if they go out to the suburbs. Chicago doesn't benefit if they go off to another state. Chicago benefits if they stay in Chicago, and the rest of the region does. So let your legislators know that proposal where the stadium would be owned by us, and that Springfield, if they're going to provide any tax breaks or giveaways to billionaires, they certainly have to look at ensuring that a stadium that the taxpayers would own in Chicago, that it actually gets built in Chicago.
Amen to all of that. I know you've got to get out of here. I have a couple more things that I do absolutely need to ask you, though. There's going to be a State of the Union address this evening. What are you going to watch it? What's your plan, Mayor?
Yeah, so actually, Rufus, I'm on my way in a few hours to D.C. There is a group of leaders from across America that will be providing, their reaction to Trump's State of the Union address right after President Trump speaks. I will go live as a part of this larger collective. Mayor Fry of Minneapolis will go just before me, but I will give the keynote response for this coalition of resistant leaders from around the country. And I will go live immediately following the Trump administration and his address. And then I have the distinct honor that once I finish my response to Trump's State of the Union, I get to introduce Mr. Robert De Niro. So it's going to be a lot of high power individuals who understand the assignment as we work to protect the people of this city, Rufus. Cities across America have adopted the very executive orders that we have put forward. There are conservatively 30 million people who are currently living under the executive orders that I put forward. Everything from a pathway for prosecution of federal agents who work outside of the law to making sure that our First Amendment rights are protected. States and cities across this country have adopted those measures. And tonight we'll have the opportunity to meet those folks, to convene with those folks, and then, of course, respond to Trump's State of the Union address.
So your discussion comes on after his. It's not being done as an alternative to what he's presenting.
So that's a very good question. So it is an alternative. There will be people who will be speaking throughout his address, but my keynote does not move forward until he's done. So I will give the direct response on behalf of the resistance movement in this country to Donald Trump. And I'll make sure that our communications department provide you with the link so that the people of Chicago can tune in right after if they do decide to listen to President Trump, right after they listen to him, they can hear directly from their mayor and my response to his address.
Yeah, some of us, like me, have to take one for the team and listen to him. So, so we can talk about it tomorrow. But I appreciate that you're doing that and all that's there, and look forward to hearing from your team so I can share where it's going to be. But look forward to hearing you and your thoughts this evening. And at some point in the future, Mayor, when you come back on, let's talk about affordability and what we're doing here to try to make life more affordable for the citizens of Chicago.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Thank you, Rufus, for your time, and I always appreciate you. And thank you for you moderating that great discussion at City Club. I thought that you handled that crowd and that moment very well, man. And I'm sure our people are very proud of you and the work that you have done, but particularly in that moment. Thank you for taking good care of us as a city.
Wow, that means a lot. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for being as candid as you were in that discussion as well. I'm sure we're all proud of you in how you manage the moment. Safe travels, and we look forward to speaking with you again.
Very well. Thank you.
All right. Let's find out from Candace what's going on in the news. We'll be back with more after this.
More of the morning show with Rufus Williams coming up on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Have you checked out WVON's digital streaming network, Bond TV? It's everywhere on Roku, Apple TV Plus, Amazon Fire, on the WVON app, and at VON.TV. Bond TV, it's cultural content on purpose.
Hi, I'm Richard Boykin, and I want to be your next congressman in the 7th Congressional District. I have a sense of urgency. Now is the time to reverse the cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP benefits. Now is the time to extend the Obamacare subsidies. Now is the time to close the life expectancy gap and other healthcare disparities. Now is the time to close the wealth disparity. Now is the time to close the achievement gap. Now is the time to protect Social Security for our senior citizens. Now is the time to pass a constitutional amendment recognizing healthcare as a right. Now is the time to make housing more affordable. Now is the time to fight. Punch 39. Richard Boykin for Congress. Paid for and authorized by Richard Boykin for Congress.
I'm Rufus Williams. Watch the new episode of Bound and Woven, where I sit down with a woman whose story shook this city and moved the nation. Anjanette Young, author of Past the Pain, joins me for a raw and honest conversation about trauma, accountability, and what it really takes to rebuild your life when the system fails you. This is an easy conversation, but it's necessary. Join me for Bound and Woven, streaming now on Bond TV, which you can catch on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV Plus, the WVON app, or simply go to VON.TV.
It's the afternoon show with Atiba Buchanan and LaDonna Ray, your new favorite part of the day.
Tune in 3 to 6 Monday through Thursday on WVON 1690 AM. We ask the questions you're thinking
and the ones you're afraid to ask.
The afternoon show, only on WVON.
This report is brought to you by Blindster.com. Kyle Cox started Blindster in his garage back in 2010. Since then, they've sold millions of custom blinds, shades, and shutters nationwide. Their blinds are DIY friendly, guaranteed to fit, and always cheaper than big box stores. Blindster.com.
It's D.L. Hughley.
And you know the good thing about it, the MC list is I'm so glad that they're so racist. Because they're like, we don't want any black girls. This is the only time black worked. The only time racism was like, thank God.
Weekdays at 5 a.m. on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Tuned in to your favorite WVON personalities on Facebook Live? Don't just watch, like it, love it, share it. Every click helps us grow the conversation and keep the community strong. So remember, like it, love it, share it, Chicago.
Have you checked out WVON's digital streaming network, Bond TV? It's everywhere on Roku, Apple TV Plus, Amazon Fire, on the WVON app, and at VON.TV. Bond TV, it's cultural content on purpose.
You've got mail.
Are you an insider? Well, if you're part of the WVON family, you should be. Sign up for the WVON's weekly Insider e-newsletter and stay in the know on all things VON. It's news, it's entertainment, it's the 411 on all things Chicago. Become an insider. Sign up on the WVON app or at WVON.com. You're now connected.
Goodbye.
I'm Candace McCollum, and here's what's happening in your local and national news. Several air travelers are now returning to Chicago airports from Mexico. Barry Williams has more.
The mayhem started after cartel kingpin El Mencho was killed by Mexican special forces. Former Illinois legislator Yoni Pizer says he was in the middle of the chaos in Mexico.
There were so many vehicles on fire with gas tanks exploding, and then there was gunfire all around us. And so there was kind of pandemonium.
Those who remain stranded are urged to contact the State Department's crisis hotline. And those from within the U.S. or Canada can call 888-407-4747. I'm Perry Williams.
In other news, the Illinois Department of Corrections is not revealing where former Sangamon County Sheriff's Deputy Sean Grayson is serving his 20-year prison sentence for the killing of Sonia Massey. Grayson was sentenced last month after he was convicted in October of second-degree murder. Authorities say the former deputy shot and killed Massey in July of 2024 after she called 911 over a potential intruder at her home. IDOC said Grayson has begun his prison term, but will not confirm his location for safety reasons. And infants raised on vegan or vegetarian diets develop growth patterns. Tammy Trujillo has more.
That's according to a study from Ben-Gurion University that followed about 1.2 million infants from birth up to 2 years old. Vegan families were slightly more likely to have low birth weight babies, but it mostly evened out by the age of 2. It's the largest study ever conducted with this age group on plant-based versus omnivorous diets. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
I'm Candace McCollum, and that's what's happening in your news now on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Hey, it's Cleopatra Draper. Join me for the Midday Show weekdays at 9 a.m., where we'll sip and spill all the tea. Do you want it hot or cold? Either way, we're serving up the flavor of the day. Weekdays at 9 a.m. right here on the station giving you what's now and what's next. 1690 WVON.
This report is brought to you by Blindster.com. Kyle Cox started Blindster in his garage back in 2010. Since then, they've sold millions of custom blinds, shades, and shutters nationwide. Their blinds are DIY friendly, guaranteed to fit, and always cheaper than big box stores. Blindster.com.
If you're not out of the bed yet, then what are you waiting for? It's the WVON Morning Show with Rufus Williams on 1690 WVON.
Have joined us this morning Dr. Helen Margellos-Ananst. She is the president of Sinai Urban Health Institute. They've recently done a study that talks about the obvious thing. Community-led solutions have actually helped to save lives in the work that they do. Dr. Margellos-Ananst, welcome to WVON.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good to have you. So tell us, for listeners who may not know, what is the Sinai Urban Health Institute? And why was it created 25 years ago?
Sure. So Sinai Urban Health Institute, or SUHI as we call ourselves, we are the community engaged research and innovation arm of Sinai Chicago, which is Illinois' largest private safety net health system. And we were founded in 2000 to answer a simple but urgent question, and that is, why are Black Chicagoans and other people of color dying younger and suffering more from preventable diseases? So Suki's mission from our inception has really been to advance health equity in the historically disinvested communities that Sinai serves on the west and southwest sides of Chicago. And in the 25 years it's been in existence, we've really gone beyond that and begun thinking about health inequities at the larger level, at the national level as well. So we started very Chicago focused, and we've always been very hyper-local in our emphasis. So really, Sinai was progressive, recognizing back in 2000 that if we are to better serve the patients that we see as a health system, we need to understand the communities in which they live and the context of their lives. And so that's what Suki was set up to do. And we focus on everything from understanding health disparities, developing and testing innovative solutions to advance community health and well-being, to measuring our impact. And we've been scaling things that are effective. And all the work we do is done in partnership, true partnership with the communities that are impacted and other allies in the mission.
Dr. Margellos-Ananst, I'm glad you all are doing this. I was working in Lawndale, not far from Sinai, actually, about 10 years ago. And it was a question that I was asking because, one, why aren't we there? And why are we dying so much earlier than everyone else? What is this thing that's happening? So it's good that you all are there. Good you've been there for the time that you have. And good you're focusing in on this. You just released this 25-year impact report. Why is this report so important right now?
I think it's important right now because we're in a time where some of the progress we've seen, and we have seen progress in those 25 years, in reducing some of these health differences is being reversed, right? So, we had COVID-19 that we know impacted communities of color to a greater extent than white communities. And so we saw some longer term impacts on life expectancy and health. And now we're living through some interesting, to say it nicely, times in terms of policies that were in place and that are being shifted, and the safety net really shifting. And so having this report that speaks to a process that's been used over 25 years to understand the drivers of health inequities, including calling out the impact of racism in holding those inequities in place, is important because we didn't stop there. We didn't stop at publishing papers and academic journals that show there's a problem. We have been partnering towards the right actions in partnership with communities to identify and implement the right solutions. And that's really what the report documents. It shows that the work is valuable and that if we continue to partner and mobilize the right people in the effort and lean into things together, we can make an impact.
But Doc, I have to ask you, because this has gone on for so long and is so prevalent, is this structural? Have we found that these issues of racism on health are actually structural?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, going back decades, there are communities such as Lawndale where there have not been the same investments that have been made into other communities. There are systems set up and policies in place that advantage certain populations over other populations. And as a result of all of that, these inequities are held in place. And so really to get to a solution, we have to shift that system. And we're starting to do that. But in the meantime, there are other things that we can do to support communities and continue to move the ship in the right direction.
Well, the facts are important. And one of the most striking findings is about excess Black deaths in Chicago. Can you explain what SUI found in regard to that?
Sure. We've done a lot of work in this space. So SUI has done a lot of work analyzing existing data sources. So things like birth and death certificate data towards understanding disparities. And SUI researchers were amongst the first to focus with analyses on the city and even the community level. So prior to our work, data on death rates was really available more at the national, the state, or the county level. But we recognize that it's critical to have city-specific or even community-level data to understand not only health disparities, which can differ tremendously across a geographic area, but also so that we can dig into what's really driving those disparities so that elected officials and healthcare organizations and community organizations can make the right decisions around policies and programs that impact on them. So one of our most shocking research findings, I think this is what you're referring to, is that more than 3,800 Black individuals die each year in Chicago because the Black population has a higher death rate than the white population. And the death rate for Black individuals in Chicago is 65% higher than that for white individuals. That is a bigger disparity than is seen for the U.S. overall, where the Black rate is 24% higher than the white rate. And, the important thing here is that these aren't inevitable deaths. They are tied to unequal access to care, to safe housing, to healthy food, to economic opportunity, those structural factors we were just talking about. And so we really need to understand data locally, compared to the local data to other cities, which we've also done through a project called Unequal Cities. We've looked at the largest U.S. cities and Black-white disparities and have found that that gap that I just described is one of the highest in the country in terms of any city. And then understand not only, but then understand what's driving those inequities so that we can implement the right programs and policies.
Well, let's talk about that, because when you start to think about the programs that need to happen, what kind of things what would you do to help move to deal with some of the issues that you pointed out, access to care, healthy food, housing? What do you do about that?
Yes, so I'll give you a couple of examples. One area we've done a lot, excuse me, one area we've done a lot of work in has been around breast cancer. And some of the research that we've done has shown that there's an alarming disparity for Black women in breast cancer. And what essentially has happened is between 1980 and 2006, breast cancer mortality decreased in white women, but it stayed stable in Black women. So in 1980, the rates were essentially the same for Black and white women. But by 2006, all these advantages we'd had in terms of better diagnostics that was developed over that period, better treatments that were developed over that period, were really advantaging white women and not impacting on the rate in Black women. So by 2006, the Black rate in Chicago for mortality was twice as high as it was for white women. And so we really then needed to dig into why that was the case. And so we had this data, and we went and we did two things. The first was we looked at the quality of the mammography and of the technicians reading the mammograms. So we looked around the city. We started with data again. We always start with data. And we noted that in certain areas, the number of potential cancers that were being found on mammograms was lower than you would expect given the population rate of breast cancer. And so that led us to say, well, why is that? Are technicians missing these potential cancers? Are they not reading the mammograms correctly? Is the equipment old? And we found that both of those things were happening. And so there's a large initiative that took off, which is called Metropolitan Breast Cancer Task Force back then. So he was a founder of this. And that task force did a lot around that issue of access and quality of the mammography. And now that's actually become Equal Hope, which continues to do a lot of amazing work. The other thing
we'll be back more with Dr. Margellos-Ananst right after this.
More of the morning show with Rufus Williams coming up on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
This Black History Month, WVON is coming with a message. Kiss My Black Past. We're partnering with adopted Chicago artist Keith David Connor, the visionary behind Black history illustrations that have inspired Chicago for years. His latest work, The Culture Proud Calendar, connects to WVON's Eracism campaign at a time when Black history and Black identity are under attack. This month, we're not just celebrating the past, we're protecting it and pushing forward. Unapologetically Black, unapologetically proud. This Black History Month, WVON doesn't just honor history, we make it.
Remember when getting your hair done wasn't just a beauty ritual, but a bonding experience? From hot combs in Grandma's kitchen to laughter in the local beauty salon, it's a journey rooted in love, legacy, and style. Join Nidra Williams, owner of Solo Beauty Supply, for the business of Black hair, Tuesday nights from 9 to midnight. She's bringing the sisterhood back. One story, one strand at a time. It's more than hair, it's heritage. Join the sisterhood, Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. on the Talk of Chicago, WVON.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline Nasal Spray?
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultra-fine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
This report is brought to you by Staples. Staples has hot deals and super low prices on everything you need for your business. And right now at Staples, save up to $125 off your print order. Exclusions apply. Shop Staples in store, online, or in the app. Ends April 18th. Visit staples.com.
WVON traffic and weather now.
Chicago, good Tuesday morning. It is time for an update on the roads, and those travel times, they are building. We begin on the Edens, the Lake Cook to Montrose, a 22-minute ride. Right now, if you're on the Kennedy, O'Hare to downtown, a 50-minute trip. Stop and go inbound between Canfield and Montrose. Right now on the Stevenson, Tri-State to Double Lakeshore Drive, a 42-minute trip. Slow go inbound between Ashland and the Dan Ryan. If you're on the Ryan, 95th to downtown, 42 minutes. We have slow-moving traffic in the local lanes inbound between 59th and 31st, I-57, I-80 to the Ryan, a 14-minute trip. Your weather for today, expect a high of 39 degrees, cloudy to partly sunny. Tonight, a low of 26. I'm Candace McCollum with an update on the roads on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Keep your eyes on the road and both hands on the steering wheel. We will not be held responsible for any accidents. It's the WVON Morning Show with Rufus Williams on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
We're back more with Dr. Helen Margellos-Ananst, the CEO of the Sinai Urban Health Institute.
Did was to utilize community health workers. So we worked with community health workers, and we essentially sent them out to communities, and we had them identify women who were of the age that they should be having screening mammograms and educate them on the importance of those mammograms. But we didn't stop there. We then very actively navigate those women to their screening mammograms, and if they need them, to follow up diagnostics and treatment. And that program has been largely successful. We've educated over 30,000 women. We've navigated over 6,000 to mammograms. And the other important point here, vitally important, is that prior to 2005, we were seeing that 30% of women who were coming to Sinai and had an abnormal mammogram never returned for further diagnostics or treatments, which means they were not finding out that they had breast cancer. They were not getting treated. So that's a large contributor to what we were seeing with the death rates. And we've reduced that to less than 5%, so basically nothing. So it's been an incredible program and one that really supports us in improving access to care.
It really is. Now, you mentioned Equal Help. Is that the Helping Her Live program as well that has become this national model for getting women screened and helping them navigate through treatment?
Yes, thank you. So Helping Her Live is Suki's program, and Equal Hope uses a similar program. So that program has been scaled. Equal Hope is its own organization, and they do very similar work to what I described with Helping Her Live.
Got it.
But yes, it is a program that has now been scaled nationally.
Got it. Let's talk about another thing that impacts our community pretty greatly, particularly with children, asthma. Talk about the work that you've done around asthma and what impact that has had.
Yes, and I'm so thrilled to talk about this issue because this is actually the issue that I started working on when I first joined Suki 25 years ago myself. So it's really dear to my heart. Because when I joined, after I completed my master's, I joined as a social epidemiologist and the evaluator of our first ever pediatric asthma intervention at Sinai. And so back then we didn't have that local level data. So we didn't know based on, asthma prevalence rates or, the percentage of kids that had asthma, that there were larger pockets in certain areas. But we did have a lot of kids coming into our emergency department that were being hospitalized for asthma repeatedly. And we would later learn through the Sinai Community Survey, which we conducted in 2000 to 2003, that the prevalence of asthma in the predominantly Black and Puerto Rican neighborhoods we serve on the West Side was as high as 25 to 35%. So that's 2 to 3 times higher than it was nationally at the time. And so there was a strong need for action. And we know that in order to manage asthma, you need to be connected to the right medical care. You need to be taking the right medications. But it also means you need to know what your triggers are so you can avoid those triggers or minimize their impact. And so that's the work that we set out to do. And again, we worked with community health workers. We actually started in with children who were being seen in our emergency department or being hospitalized or were coming to see our pediatric pulmonologist. And we connected them with a CHW who was working in a clinic setting. And that was our first program. And so that CHW would educate them on asthma, it's the triggers, they would educate them on all the things, but in a clinic setting. And that program was largely successful. We were able to see that we reduced hospitalizations by 81%, reduced emergency visits by 64%. But we also knew we needed to do more because we were missing those who need the intervention the most, those who are not connected to care, those who are not going to come back to the clinic to have that education. And we also knew that by doing this in the clinic, we were missing things in the home environment, things that families didn't even know were there that were impacting on their child's asthma. So this began a journey that we've been on for really the next 20 plus years to hire, train, and deploy CHWs towards connecting with people in the communities they live in, towards educating them and connecting them actively to what they need to better manage their asthma. So we've done home visit programs for many years, several iterations of them, and we now, again, have been scaling that work. But these programs focus on doing actual assessments in the home. So we actually will walk through the home environment. We will find things that the families didn't even know were there. And we will support them with the right connections in ensuring that they get those things fixed. If they're small things, the CHW can help them learn how to fix them themselves. If they're large things, we have to bring in organizations that will support them in working with their landlord so that they protect their rights and that they don't have challenges there. We sometimes have to bring lawyers, but we make sure we get those those things in the environment fixed. And that has led to huge improvements in health.
Yeah.
And this program is another one that's been scaled largely.
Indeed, once you get the environment around people, then that certainly helps to improve all of the health of what's going on. But you also mentioned a couple of times in our conversation, community health workers. Why are they so central to the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, CHWs, as we call them, are the backbone of what we do. And for anyone who doesn't know what a CHW is, they are a frontline public health worker. And their main characteristic is they are from the communities they serve, which means they can speak, quote unquote, the language of the community. They understand the culture of the community. They know the assets of the community. They often have very similar life experiences to the people that they're working with. And as a result of all of that, they can build trusting relationships very quickly. And as long as people have certain core qualities, you know, they can think quickly on their feet, they care about their neighbors, they can be responsive to what they're seeing, we can train them to be CHWs. And so we actually have really we are leaders in this space at Suki. So we've developed programs in asthma, in breast health, in diabetes prevention management, in behavioral health, in complex care management, and many other areas. And all of these programs have centered community health workers. And CHWs allow us to offer culturally grounded care, people helping their neighbors manage these conditions and more. And for me, you know, this is actually probably the main through line through my own career is the CHW work. And the reason I am so passionate about this work is because it goes beyond the immediate, let's help our neighbor, which is vitally important, but it also offers good jobs and career pathways for people. And so it's making an economic impact and putting more assets into the community from within the community. So towards that latter aim, in 2017, we actually founded an organization we call Crowd, which is part of Suki, but it's our CHW training consulting arm. And through Crowd, we've aimed to increase the number of CHWs in the country. So we've trained nearly 4,000 CHWs since 2017. Many of them are Black Chicagoans, Black Americans who serve their own neighborhoods. And through Crowd, we are supporting people in growing skills that lead to ongoing meaningful employment and professional growth. And another reason that CHW is so important to Suki is because we now employ 15 directly. We have about 60 in Sinai, Chicago. We're part of networks that include hundreds of CHWs. And that connection allows us to bring in the wisdom of those CHWs, their connection to the community, to inform our research and our action. So they are actively involved in all aspects of building out what we're going to focus on, designing the research, and impacting what follows.
So important.
We'll be back right after we find out what's in the headlines and in Black Information News.
I'm Candace McCollum, and here are your news headlines. Air travelers starting to return to Chicago airports from violence in Mexico. Alderwoman Shirley Drewinski elected acting mayor after death of Christopher Clark. And Dick Durbin bringing inspiration for the DREAM Act to Trump's State of the Union address. We will have details on these stories and much more headed your way. National news from the Black Information Network is up next on the station that is Black and proud, WVON, 1690 AM, Berwyn, Chicago.
Here's PIN News Now. Texas Republicans say the University of Texas is skirting the state's DEI ban by renaming its assistant dean of equity initiatives instead of eliminating the role.
Instead of getting rid of DEI, they're just shuffling people around.
That's State Representative Brian Harrison. Melissa Taylor was reassigned as Vice Provost for Strategic Initiatives, a move GOP lawmakers say still enables DEI-style policies. HUD plans to end housing assistance for mixed immigration status families. The agency says nearly 200,000 tenants have incomplete eligibility records and estimate about 24,000 undocumented immigrants benefit from HUD programs. And the Secret Service will start giving new protective detail agents two tailored Navy suits after Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem complained about how agents were dressed. CNN reports the taxpayer-funded suits will be U.S.-made and issued after training. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app. Now back to Terry McCready.
Black House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is urging Democratic House members to protest silently or stay out of the House chamber.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir.
Trump's first congressional address last year included Democrats holding up signs accusing Trump of lying, and House Speaker Mike Johnson warning Black Congressman Al Green of Texas after he stood up and shouted at Trump while waving his cane. Green was ejected and later censured, but had no regrets, saying he'd do it again.
On some issues that are matters of conscience, it is better to stand alone than not stand at all.
Meanwhile, at least a dozen Democrats are planning to boycott tonight's address and participate in counter-programming events. The newly minted governor of Virginia has been tapped to deliver the Democrats' State of the Union response. Abigail Spanberger won during the November 2025 elections, part of a trio of high-profile Democratic wins that gave the party a boost leading into the 2026 midterms. At least half a dozen House Democrats have invited survivors of Jeffrey Epstein to be their guests tonight. Representative Rokana of California, one of the authors of the Epstein Transparency Act, said in a statement he's bringing Haley Robson, who says Epstein trafficked her when she was just 16. Some Epstein survivors have been critical of the Trump administration's handling of the Epstein case and the release of the files. Some are accusing the Justice Department of not doing enough to prosecute possible Epstein accomplices while redacting the names of some in the files that were released. Others say the DOJ violated their rights and the Epstein Transparency Act by failing to redact all of their names. Mackenzie Scott's record-shattering $20 million donation to Santa Barbara City College is now raising eyebrows over how a portion of the funding was used. Fortune reports the gift awarded in 2021 was the largest in the college's 112-year history. Earlier this year, SBCC's Board of Trustees disclosed that roughly $10.5 million of the donation had been spent without formal authorization from the foundation board, college leadership, or trustees. The funding in question supported the college's Promise program, which covers tuition, books, and supplies for about 1,800 local students annually. The issue focuses on process and oversight. CEO Bobby Abram said the situation stemmed from internal breakdowns rather than misuse. She described the incident as an accounting process failure and a lack of transparency. She insisted corrections have since been made. Stay informed, stay connected, and subscribe. Follow VIN News this hour wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Terry McCready for the Black Information Network.
This report is brought to you by Mattress Firm. Score major deals on top brands at Mattress Firm's President's Day sale. Find your dream mattress today. Their sleep experts are highly trained to find the right one to fit your unique needs. They make sleep easy.
There is probably nothing more electric than dance performance to a live orchestra. Witness the deeply rooted dance theater and the Chicago Sinfonietta in a powerful performance. Still I Rise, 2 nights only, March 6th in Naperville and March 7th in Chicago. Still I Rise featuring the deeply rooted dance theater will be a performance your family will talk about for years to come. Still I Rise, March 6th and March 7th. Get tickets and details at chicagosinfonietta.org. That's chicagosinfonietta.org.
It's Rufus Williams.
This is not the America that we thought it was. Certainly not now. And whatever pushing has to go to reverse that, I'm sure that Keith Ellison and the others there in Minneapolis are doing it, because anything that's happening anywhere can happen right here to us. And there's no reason to believe in any way, shape, or form that you can be separated from it.
Weekdays at 7 a.m. on The Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Every family deserves care close to home. At PCC Community Wellness Center, we offer prenatal visits, doula support, family medicine, specialty care, parenting support, nurse home visits, and more, all personalized for you. PCC, because strong families build healthy communities. Visit pccwellness.org or call 708-383-0113. Funding provided in whole or in part by Illinois Department of Human Services.
It's D.L. Hughley.
The Epstein list has come out again. Every time it comes out, the one thing that is pretty consistent is how prominently mentioned Donald Trump is. I think in this last batch, Donald Trump was mentioned 38,500 times. Jesus was only in the Bible 1,400 times. And that's his daddy's book.
Weekdays at 5 a.m. on The Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
This is Khomeini Khan, certified financial planner professional. For the past year, I've been on a mission to change lives and build wealth in our community. Together, we're changing the paradigm. This year, I'm back with a new series, Wealth Strategies, Money Talks. Join me every Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. on the Rufus Williams Show as we have thoughtful discussions around building wealth in our community. We'll discuss topics like investing, savings, tax strategies, retirement, and all things money. Yes, that's Tuesday at 8:30 a.m., so set those alarms. Also, be sure to check out the podcast at WVONWealthShow.com.
Khomeini Khan is a certified financial planner professional with Optimal Planning Partners in alliance with Equitable Advisors, LLC member SIPC in Oak Brook, Illinois. For more information, please call 630-575-5046.
This report is brought to you by Audible. Stuck in traffic? And if you're stuck in traffic, why not take care of you? Who better to help you do that than the top voices in well-being on Audible? Get your first audiobook free when you sign up for a 30-day trial at audible.com/wellbeing.
WVON Traffic and Weather now.
Chicago, good Tuesday morning, another day, another blessing. It is February 24th, right now on the Stevenson Tri-State 2 Double Lakeshore Drive, 41 minutes. Heavy inbound between Ashland and the Dan Ryan. Right now on the Ryan, 95th to downtown, a 38-minute trip. I-57, I-80 to the Ryan, 14 minutes, and the Bishop Ford. 80-94 to the Ryan, you're looking at a 20-minute ride. Your weather for today, expect a high of 39 degrees, partly sunny, and tonight a low of 26. I'm Candace McCollum with an update on the roads on the Dock of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
1690 WVON remembers the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr.
Black, beautiful, proud. I must be respected. I must be protected.
You were a beacon of light, not only for Chicago, but for the nation. From our family to yours. Rest in peace, Reverend Jackson. Job well done.
Live from the Xfinity Studios, it's the station that America listens to. WVON, Berwyn, Chicago. It's Rufus Williams on Chicago's essential storyteller, WVON.
You wonder how to do it. It's just one simple rule. I'm just cool. Honey, baby, can't you see? Girl, I'm so cool.
nobody bad like me. Hey. R-U-F-U-S. What's that spell? R-U-F-U-S. Just Money, daddy, can't you see? Girl, I'm so ain't nobody bad like me. Sing it, baby. R-U-F-U-S. What's that stand? R-U-F-U-S. That spell cool. The audio genius. The audio genius. The audio genius.
Back to wrap up our conversation with Helen Margellos-Ananst. She is the CEO of Sinai Urban Health Institute.
On so many different levels for now and for this aging population, these community health workers are just so critical for that. One of the things, as we think about what takes place in the community, and truly some of the thing that causes a higher death rate is the issue of violence and mental health. How is SUI addressing those issues?
Yeah, I mean, SUI has been doing a lot of work in these areas, especially more recently. I can say that I have never in my 25 years been in a community meeting around health where violence was not brought forward as one of the key drivers that we need to address to support communities in being healthier and being well. And that of course makes sense because violence has an immediate impact on the person and the family that is that experiences it, but it goes beyond that. It impacts the whole community. One of the striking things that I've seen and that I've learned in many of the surveys we've done is that 70 to 80% of people in some of the communities that we work in have directly seen violence. Whether it's in their home, whether it's in their community, oftentimes in the community. And that's striking. I mean, that is going to make an impact on somebody. So we've done a lot of work in this area. We know there's higher rates of depression, anxiety, and trauma in the communities that we work with. So with regard to mental health specifically, we have some data. It's a little bit old from the community survey we did in 2016, but we found that as an example. The rate of diagnosed depression in North Lawndale, the predominantly non-Hispanic Black community that we serve at Mount Sinai Health, specifically Mount Sinai Hospital, that the actual rate of diagnosed depression is lower than it is for the rest of Chicago. But then when we looked at depressive symptoms, we had a screening tool, 17% of North Lawndale residents had symptoms of depression versus 7% of Americans overall. So that really shows this lack of enough services in the community or connecting people to those services, because there's also, I think, some people who do not want to go get diagnosed and treated. There's some stigma around that. And so that was one area we knew we needed to focus, is getting more people access to diagnosis and then, of course, to treatment. We also found that about 1 in 5 Black adults surveyed had current symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is similar to what we see among soldiers returning from active conflict. So the impact of trauma cannot be emphasized. And so some of the work that we've done around that is we have, again, leaned into our community health workers. This is much more recent, but we have integrated CHWs into behavioral health at Sinai Chicago to support people in getting faster access to therapy or diagnostics and therapy as needed, and to also support them with everything else they need to get to that place, all the social needs that they might have. So having the right transportation to get their appointments, having access to healthy foods. So that's been one thing. We're also experimenting now more on how to integrate CHWs directly into provision of direct service. And that would be for people with lower acuity behavioral health challenges. There is this very real shortage of therapists, not only in the community Sinai serves, but beyond, but particularly in the community Sinai serves. And so there are some models internationally with CHWs providing some direct care to those with lower acuity needs that helps you to get people started as they wait to be connected to the licensed therapist. So we're looking at some of that. We are also, with the issue of violence, we are beginning to launch something we call the Westside Trauma and Resiliency Center in Sinai. And this is an integrated model of care that brings together clinical care, rehabilitation services, behavioral health, and social support services for those that are impacted by violence, either directly or indirectly, and bringing those all together for efficiency and enhanced impact and helping everything flow better. So those are some of the things we're doing, but this is an area that we are getting much more active in now.
Yeah, so important because of the impact that these two things have, mental health and violence, one, everything else around there. But another thing that's so important, and we have now, as time goes along, we learn so much more about the development of young brains and what happens when children are first born and what happens even when they're in the womb. What is SUI doing to improve the outcomes for Black mothers and babies?
Yeah, so there's been a couple of, this was, as you said, a vitally important issue. There's been a lot of data, not only from SUI, but beyond, that shows that birth outcomes for Black women and their own health outcomes after birth poorer than they are for white women. And so we've contributed to that some. So we have been part of supporting better understanding the disparities that we have in birth outcomes in Chicago. For example, we recently examined infant mortality rates. So that's the number of deaths of infants under 1 year of age per 1,000 live births in a geographic area. And we did this for the 69 largest cities in the United States, including Chicago. And what we found was that Black infant mortality rate in Chicago is 4 times higher than the white rate. And only a few other cities had a gap as large as this. But then again, we want to get to the why. And so one of the things we've done around that is to better understand some of the contributing factors. It's a project that we did in partnership with the American Medical Association and March of Dimes to assess the impact of maternity deserts on maternal and infant outcomes. And specifically, we were looking at the impact of OBGYN facility closures and how the distance from where one lives to both primary and specialized OBGYN care relates to birth outcomes. And our research showed that there are these deserts, places where people either there's not enough of this sort of service given the population, and there's no easy way to get to the service via public transportation. That really makes certain areas at higher risk for poor outcomes because they can't access the care. So that was one thing we're looking into. The other thing is, again, on the action side. And so, not surprisingly, a lot of this work for us has focused around CHWs. And so we've received some grant funding recently that's allowed us to begin building out a CHW-centered perinatal system of care in both inpatient and outpatient settings at Sinai Chicago. And so over the next 2 years, SUHI is working with clinical partners to better connect patients in early pregnancy. So we're out in the community finding people who are pregnant, connecting them early to prenatal care. Wherever they come in, because they're not all going to come in early, even given that, we are connecting with them actively when they do access care. And then we're supporting them. We're screening them for their social needs. We're supporting them in getting access to every program and every service they possibly could need to best manage their well-being, which is going to help them best manage their own outcome. So that's part of what we're doing. And this continues through postpartum and making sure that, babies are being seen by pediatricians and all of that sort of thing. But we also are, supporting women by connecting them more actively with doulas. So we actually have some of our CHWs who are being trained as doulas now. And doulas are a bit different in that they very actively support the birth process. So that's another area where it's also about having support for women while they're accessing care, so that as they're advocating for the things they need and for the things they're experiencing, they're being listened to. Because that's another area that's been found in research to make a major difference is the way physicians and clinicians sometimes interpret what they're seeing differs by race. And that's horrible, and we need to fix that, and we're working on that. But in the meantime, partnering a doula can help overcome some of that.
Indeed. Doc, you've covered so much because you guys have covered so much. If there was one thing that our listeners should remember from this report, what should that be?
I think it's that disparities exist, they persist, and they're held in place by these structural factors that need to be shifted for true sustaining change. And when we work together and we lean into community wisdom and we bring diverse expertise to the table, we can change those conditions. And this report shows that when Black communities lead and their knowledge is valued, lives improve. 25 years of SUHI's data and work in partnership with communities makes that undeniable.
Well, let me say this, 25 years looking back was already in this century since we're in 2026, but you've covered so much ground in what you've done and covered so much of it in this report. We're grateful for the work that you've done and grateful that you brought it so that we can share with others. But when you look forward, what's next for Suhi as you look to the next 25 years?
Yeah, I mean, the future of Suhi is about staying grounded in the realities of our communities. So in Chicago, we're still seeing nearly a 22-year life expectancy gap between the neighborhoods we serve and more resource areas of Chicagoland. In moments of disruption like COVID and what we're experiencing now with large disruptions to the state and its public health only widens those inequities. So this is a time to double down on our work, not pull back on our work. But we learned a lot about how to do that well. So we've spent 25 years naming racism as a root cause of health differences, studying health disparities at a hyperlocal level, and partnering with communities and those who care about them to design solutions. So that foundation positions us to lead through uncertainty. And we're returning to our roots, to advocacy, to data and community partnership, to push for structural changes that will shape the future we all want. And we'll also be scaling the community-driven solutions we know make a difference, continuing to innovate as new challenges emerge, as they will, and deepening the partnerships that move this work forward. At the heart of all of it is a real sense of hope, because we know what's possible when communities lead. So our commitment is simple and unwavering: help Black Chicagoans and all Chicagoans live longer, healthier lives.
That's Dr. Helen Margellos-Ananst. She is the president of the Sinai Urban Health Institute, SUHI, talking about SUHI's 25th anniversary and the 2025 Impact Report. Dr. Margellos-Ananst, thank you so much for the work that you do, and thanks so much for coming on and sharing this important information with us today. We truly appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you.
Be well.
And we'll be back right after this.
More of the morning show on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Hi, I'm Richard Boykin, and I want to be your next congressman in the 7th Congressional District. I have a sense of urgency. Now is the time to reverse the cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP benefits. Now is the time to extend the Obamacare subsidies. Now is the time to close the life expectancy gap and other healthcare disparities. Now is the time to close the wealth disparity. Now is the time to close the achievement gap. Now is the time to protect Social Security for our senior citizens. Now is the time to pass a constitutional amendment recognizing healthcare as a right. Now is the time to make housing more affordable. Now is the time to fight. Punch 39. Richard Boykin for Congress. Paid for and authorized by Richard Boykin for Congress.
Tuned in to your favorite WVON personalities on Facebook Live? Don't just watch, like it, love it, share it. Every click helps us grow the conversation and keep the community strong. So remember, like it, love it, share it, Chicago.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline Nasal Spray?
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultrafine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it! Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Hey, it's Cleopatra Draper. Join me for the Midday Show weekdays at 9 a.m. where we'll sip and spill all the tea. Do you want it hot or cold? Either way, we're serving up the flavor of the day. Weekdays at 9 a.m. right here on the station giving you what's now and what's next. 1690 WVON.
This report is brought to you by Blindster.com. Kyle Cox started Blindster in his garage back in 2010. Since then, they've sold millions of custom blinds, shades, and shutters nationwide. Their blinds are DIY friendly, guaranteed to fit, and always cheaper than big box stores. Blindster.com.
If you're not out of the bed yet, then what are you waiting for? It's the WVON Morning Show with Rufus Williams on 1690 WVON.
Welcome back. The governor gave his State of the State and his budget address last week, and an opportunity to talk with the Speaker of the House immediately after to share his thoughts. I wanted to share that with you. We recorded it. I wanted to share that with you this morning, but we won't have an opportunity, and I want to make sure that we have enough time to give it the proper airing. So we'll do that at a later point. I do want to come back to something that was discussed a little bit yesterday on our Facebook during my show, and I talked about the BAFTAs yesterday, but I talked about it from the standpoint of winners and those who weren't as successful, and not from the standpoint of the controversy that took place there. The British Academy Film and Television Awards happened Sunday evening, and during the time that Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo were there was a guest who has Tourette syndrome, who yelled out the most derogatory term. His name is John Davidson. John Davidson has Tourette's, and he has Tourette's in a higher level of it, which is called coprolalia, which means that they involuntarily make obscene and offensive remarks, including sometimes racist comments. He was there because there was a film that was done on his life called I Swear. And it actually was a winning film there at BAFTA. The issue of yelling out this remark for all reasons, anytime that remark is yelled out in any space, it's controversial because it is the most derogatory thing that can be said, and certainly the most derogatory thing that can be said to or in the presence of Black people. And when you have people of the level of Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo there in a space like this, that is not at all what you would ever expect to happen. The BAFTA had an opportunity because they do edit these things, and there is a delay, even if it's live. So when you see things like Free Palestine that was yelled out, and they were able to take that out, they didn't take out this yelling of this racial slur. That's problematic. This brings us into the challenges and the difficulty of what you do when you have a disability such as Tourette's, coupled with the disrespect that comes with the yelling of this racist slur. I will simply say, one, there should have been some regard for Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo by BAFTA, recognizing you can't control what happens in the situation of what John Davidson did because it's an illness that he is suffering. They still had the opportunity, one, to not allow that to come out in the edited broadcast, and two, to issue a full-throated apology to these men for having to deal with that while they were there. They handled it, as you might think, with grace and aplomb. They were just the dignified people that they are, but they shouldn't have had to be. And we shouldn't have to absorb and deal with the issues and the maladies of others all the time or at any time. And so that's what makes this problematic. There is a young lady whose name is escaping me in the moment who put out a video as well. And she suffers from Tourette's and she suffers from coprolalia. And she was explaining how, as she was explaining it, you could kind of see the challenges that are there because she was cursing and she was putting up the finger. She was doing her makeup, which she did an incredible job on, but just explaining this whole issue of Tourette's and what happens there. John Davidson has said that he's not a racist. He has no racist undertones or anything. He just has no control over when these things happen or what comes out when these things occur. And said anybody who knows him knows that that is true. So we find ourselves just in this space where dealing with the issues of disability and disrespect have collided. There's a level of patience that we have had to have and show and endure from the beginnings of this country. It still continues. There were things that could have and should have been done by BAFTA. They were not. The grace and wisdom that these men showed in dealing with this is commendable. But the Academy could have done something different, and they didn't. And to that, they should be held to account while recognizing the disability of John Davidson. So we didn't talk about it yesterday, talked about it some here today. I know we're doing it in a moment where we really don't have an opportunity for you to share your thoughts, but love to hear them. Facebook is there. We'll be back later this week to have some time to cover whatever we need to. We'll be back tomorrow, in fact. But those are my thoughts as we stand right now. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, it's time for Khomeini Khan to join me and talk about wealth strategies. We'll be back right after this.
More of the morning show with Rufus Williams coming up on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Taxes. Listen carefully to rule number 1. Never go up against the IRS alone. They're cracking down, freezing bank accounts, garnishing paychecks, canceling passports. Even your home or business could be at risk. But here's what they don't tell you. The IRS has powerful tax relief programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. That's why smart people call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. Nobody knows these programs like the experts at Optima. Their team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $2 billion in tax debt for people just like you. The IRS is not stopping, so don't wait. And don't take them on alone. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima today for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
This report is brought to you by Blindster.com. Kyle Cox started Blindster in his garage back in 2010. Since then, they've sold millions of custom blinds, shades, and shutters nationwide. Their blinds are DIY friendly, guaranteed to fit, and always cheaper than big box stores. Blindster.com.
This Black History Month, WVON is coming with a message. Kiss My Black Past. We're partnering with adopted Chicago artist Keith David Connor, the visionary behind Black history illustrations that have inspired Chicago for years. His latest work, The Culture Proud Calendar, connects to WVON's Eracism campaign at a time when Black history and Black identity are under attack. This month, we're not just celebrating the past, we're protecting it and pushing forward. Unapologetically Black, unapologetically proud. This Black History Month, WVON doesn't just honor history, we make it.
When you play the 7-time bingo multiplier instant ticket from the Illinois Lottery, you play with purpose. Over $1.5 million has been raised to help support Illinois Dream Fund Commission scholarships. Purchase one to help raise even more. Be smart, play smart. Must be 18 or older to play. Game odds available at IllinoisLottery.com.
Have you checked out WVON's digital streaming network, Vaughn TV? It's everywhere on Roku, Apple TV Plus, Amazon Fire, on the WVON app, and at VON.TV. Vaughn TV, it's cultural content on purpose.
It's the afternoon show with Atiba Buchanan and LaDonna Ray.
Legendary Michael Collier, comedian, actor, storyteller.
I'll be so funny. I wish I was in the audience watching
myself. Yes, I love
Don't ask how was it making Jesus laugh, because he had been doing comedy for so long.
And he stole some of my stuff too. I didn't want to say nothing.
Weekdays at 3 p.m. on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex saline from Vicks.
Sinex saline nasal spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultra-fine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
I'm Candace McCollum, and here's what's happening in your local and national news. Mayor Brandon Johnson was a guest on the Rufus Williams Show to discuss the latest developments of our Chicago Bears and their future in Chicago.
If the Bears stay in Chicago, based upon the proposal that we have put forward, the city of Chicago would own the stadium. The Bears would be renting from us, not to mention the entire transformation that we would develop down there, 20% more green space. And so I think the last note here is that right now what's being discussed in Springfield is essentially a tax break for billionaires, right? We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars and maybe upwards of billions of dollars. That's not the proposal that's on the table here in Chicago. Again, 72% of the finance, $2.7 billion, would go from the Bears to build a stadium that the city of Chicago, the taxpayers, would own.
Chicago Park District officials say they have new plans for Soldier Field in the event the Bears leave the city. The district created a $630 million plan to remake the sports arena into a major concert venue and event space. The initiative includes $130 million in renovations to the stadium. In other news, U.S. Senator Dick Durbin is bringing a special guest to President Trump's State of the Union address tonight. The Illinois Democrat announced that Teresa Lee will join him for the address. Lee was Durbin's inspiration to write the DREAM Act in 2001. She was a musical prodigy who had played as a soloist with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And Senate Democrats are unveiling new legislation that would require the Trump administration to issue tariff refunds. Tammy Trujillo has more.
The bill would require the Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection to pay refunds up to $175 billion for all unlawfully collected duties. It's after the Supreme Court ruled President Trump's implementation of sweeping tariffs exceeded his authority under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The bill sets a deadline of 180 days after enactment for the administration to process all refunds and requires CBP to pay interest. The measure would also require CBP to report to Congress every 30 days on the status of refunds until all the fees are paid back. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
I'm Candace McCollum, and that's what's happening in your news now on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
This report is sponsored by WeatherBug. Get the fastest local alerts and accurate 24/7 forecasts with WeatherBug. It's easy to use and provide real-time customizable alerts so the weather never takes you by surprise. Plan every day with confidence. Download the free WeatherBug app from the App Store now.
The following is paid programming. The views are not necessarily those of this station. It's time for the Wealth Strategy Show with Khomeini Khan, powered by Optimal Planning Partners.
Khomeini Khan, certified financial planner professional, offers securities through Equitable Advisors, LLC, New York, New York, 212-314-4600. Member FINRA, SIPC, Equitable Financial Advisors in Michigan and Tennessee. Annuity and insurance products offered through Equitable Network, LLC, and does not provide tax or legal advice. Individuals may transact business and or respond to inquiries only in states in which they are properly registered and or licensed. This informational and educational radio segment does not offer or constitute and should not be relied upon as financial business or tax advice.
It gets trying to figure it out, fight it down, trying to believe God, trying to watch the words in my mouth and stay on the ride. Trouble come and go, even on the mountain high, on the valley low. Never let your faith go. Oh, never let your faith go. I've been there before, so confused, don't know which way to go. Stressed out, world so crazy, might as well stay in the house. Fear trying to rise up, got terrorists disguised. They look like us, but we know who we trust. Just when I say that we gon' be alright.
Welcome back. As is the case on Tuesdays, with the exception of the last one, which was a special situation. Happy to have join me in the studio, Khomeini Khan. Welcome back to WVON for your segment.
Yes. Good morning, Rufus. Good morning to all the listeners. I appreciate everyone tuning in today. You know, obviously we had, change of circumstances. You know, my condolences go out to the Jackson family. Obviously, that was important to make sure that that was covered and talked about. And so, we're picking it back up this week and, making sure that we have an opportunity to talk to listeners about their money. So
indeed, it's good. I listened to Titus give all the rundown before he comes on. And I was sitting here thinking, this sounds like one of the drug commercials. And you give all of the reasons why. I'm giving you good stuff.
Yeah.
But there's some things you need to be aware of. So,
Absolutely.
Important to pay attention to that, because committee comes in to give some good information. But when it gets real specific, you should do all the things that Titus said that you should do.
Absolutely.
Because those things are important. But it's still, I listen to this and you come on and we share a lot of good information in different ways here on the show. But certainly the information around wealth building and money management is important. Talk about why you think it's important that we have a segment like this on WVON.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Rufus. And again, good morning, and good morning to all the listeners. I think it's important that we continue to have a segment like this because we have to continue to have these discussions. We have to have discussions about how to build wealth for ourselves, our family, in particular in our community. We're going to have in-depth discussions talking about different topics every week. And so we are going to do a deep dive to give listeners really another perspective on different ways to build wealth. This is something I've been doing for 24 years. And so I want to be able to share what I've learned over my 24 years of helping individuals, families, businesses build wealth. And I want to be able to share that with the listeners. We're going to talk about topics like, making sure we look at real estate as a way of building wealth through home ownership. We're going to look at investing in the stock market and understanding about investments to build wealth. We're going to talk about looking at businesses and entrepreneurship as a way to build wealth. And then just simple strategies like, not forgetting about life insurance as a vehicle to build wealth for the next generation. So it's so important that we continue to have these discussions, to continue to educate ourselves and listeners about ways that we can build wealth so we can do better and then be able to pass that on to the next generation.
So many thoughts come to mind. And I think about the fact that it's been reported that $13 trillion passes through our hands in the course of a year. And imagine if we could go a year without spending, and how much power we would have just there, how much power we would have as a community, and every person in the community is what makes up that 13 trillion. So each of us will be that much stronger if we could just hold on. It's one thing not to shop at Target.
Right.
It's another thing to hold on to that money.
Absolutely. And then the first step is holding on to that money. Then the second step is actually growing that money.
Don't put it in your mattress.
That's right. I don't want to put it under the mattress. Well, that's the first step. It's better than, spending it all. But, once we get it from under the mattress, we got different options about actually how we can grow that money. So when we eventually want to use it, it's more than what we started with in the first place. And that's what's important too.
Really important. I got some other things that we'll get to someday, but, thinking about the Negro Leagues, I saw something on the Negro Leagues. It just led me to a whole other thing about how we have businesses that somehow we don't have and don't have the benefit of them, which is a whole other conversation. But you guys will get it coming up soon because it's sitting very heavily in mind. What we do get, and this is a time when we really start to think about things, is our taxes.
Yes.
And we have to file them, and hopefully we don't have checks to write, but some of us do. But importantly, we get money back at some point. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you would say the benefit is of having a financial strategy for this tax refund, or even some fortunate people work in companies that get bonuses, which you typically come out about this time of year. But what's the benefit of having a financial strategy around this money that comes in that you may not have otherwise expected?
Yeah, and thank you for that, Rufus. And that leads right into our financial tip of the week, using a new strategy for that tax refund or that bonus. And so when we think about a tax refund, because obviously it's tax time now, so everybody's gathering those W-2s, those 1099s, going to see the accountant. I've got a lot of phone calls like, Khomeini, where's my W-2 or 1099? You know, they could download those forms online, but everybody's kind of focused in on tax time now. And so as we think about, you know, what happens after tax time, where, you know, if you get a refund, or even if you get a bonus on a job, you got this extra money. We kind of look at it like extra money too, right? Because it's not money we use to pay our day-to-day expenses. And so people look at it like extra money. And so from that perspective, using this quote unquote extra money, you can use it to set yourself up for financial success. Be able to start to think about things that you can do to kind of move the ball forward financially. And so one of the first things we want to think about as it relates to kind of using a refund or bonus as a strategy is think about, you know, first a self-assessment, right? Like, where am I? You know, where am I? You know, what's going on with me financially? You know, am I where I want to be? Have I set some resolutions for myself this year that I'm on track or off track? So really kind of doing a self-assessment is really one of the first steps we want to do before you make any kind of money decision. The second thing we want to do is think about our goals. We want to set goals around this money, right? We don't want to just kind of be willy-nilly with it. You know, many times people may have thousands of dollars to work with, and that can be significant, you know, just depending on how much money you make and how much you have coming in. And so being able to set some goals around this money, whether it be, you know, debt or savings, investing, which I'm going to get into some of that. And so those are really the first two things we want to do, is kind of do a self-assessment about where we are and where our priorities are and, you know, what needs to be first, and then setting some goals for that money that you have coming in. You don't have to have the money, but you know, if it's coming in, you know, it's coming in, now's the time to start to set some goals for yourself around that money.
So clearly, first thing, see where you stand. Evaluate your situation, set some goals, what you're going to do. Hopefully the goals don't include going out and buying a new car. Hopefully it doesn't include that, but we'll get to some of those things that people might think about. But when you are just thinking about what strategies people should employ, because buying, I mean, they put some pretty sexy looking cars on TV, on the commercials, and they put in, you know, some pretty nice looking clothes, and, you know, you see places, maybe, perhaps not Mexico, but places you want to go on vacation. There are a lot of things that come up that people can say, okay, I've got this money. I didn't plan to have it, even though I've been overpaying my taxes over the year. What is it that our listeners may want to consider as their first strategy to do with this bonus or this tax money that comes in?
Yeah. And so thank you for that again. And so, yeah, when we think about it in terms of this extra money, this money coming in and kind of setting yourself up, you know, I want to give some recommendations that people can consider, or some suggestions. These are not recommendations. These are actually suggestions that people can consider, because a lot of things that you can do, like you said, you know, we don't necessarily want to go out and buy that brand new vehicle. You know, we want to be able to look back and say, you know, this is something that I actually did with my money. You know, I can look back and have some kind of tangible impact on my financial situation and the financial goals that I've set out for myself, and be able to use this as a jump start. And so here are some suggestions that I have for listeners. And so the first option would be, how about pay down some debt? You know, if you looked at your own financial situation and you see that, you know, you got some high credit card bills, you got some, you know, some high interest rates you're paying, how about considering using that money to pay down some of your loan? And so first thing we can do is address that high interest. You know, if you're paying, you know, 15, 20% on credit cards, or, you know, personal loans, payday loans, anything along those lines, use that money to get rid of some of those bills so you can actually have more money coming into the household on a monthly basis. How about student loans? Many people still carry student loans. You know, those may not be a high amount of interest, or it could be, depending on if it's a private loan or a public loan, but consider using some of that money to pay down student loans so you can be debt-free quicker. How about the mortgage or the auto loan? So as opposed to taking it and buying a new car. How about that car that you already have, taking it and maybe paying it off or paying a nice chunk to get it close to paid off? Because if you can free up that money from a loan that you're paying, a car note, or you can pay down some of that mortgage, that puts you that much faster to getting debt free. And also it saves you a lot of interest in the long term. So that's our first thing that we can consider is, paying down debt.
Important in that, because one of the things, as you mentioned, and think about it, if you've got a high interest loan, that's just costing you more as time goes along.
Absolutely.
If you pay that off, then not only are you paying it down, but you're also saving money going forward that you would have otherwise paid off on this 26, 29%.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing about it. When we think about paying off debt, it benefits us in multiple ways, not only just getting rid of the debt and not having it, but you're paying less interest, right? Because you're not paying that over time. If you pay the minimum amount on a credit card, it'll probably take 10, 15, maybe even 20 years to pay off. But if you send them a little bit extra, you can accelerate that and get that paid down much faster. And so that's a big suggestion I give to a lot of my clients, paying a little bit extra to get it paid off quicker.
And look, Khomeini, nothing makes you feel better. Nothing takes the stress off like having some savings versus not having anything.
Absolutely.
If you've got some money,
absolutely,
you just feel better about things. Life is just gotten a lot easier just because you got some money.
And you got more options, right? You got more options. So maybe eventually you do want to get that new car. You do want to, take that trip. You got some money to actually do it. You don't have to dig into the credit card and, and take out a loan to do it. And so that leads right into the second option. So a second option for considering for using that tax refund or bonus is building up that emergency savings, and so maybe you don't have a rainy day fund, right? Maybe you're living paycheck to paycheck, or maybe you just, have, too many expenses that don't necessarily need to be the case. Maybe you going out and eating a lot. So point is just take some of that money and consider putting it aside in a savings account, particularly in a rainy day fund, where you want to have about 6 months worth of bills set aside for when things come up, the car goes out, something happens to the house. I'm going to talk about this each and every week. I really, you might say, oh, you always talk about building an emergency reserve. It is that important. It is that important to have that emergency rainy day fund because, even if you are investing and if you don't have a rainy day savings account and something comes up, what's the first thing to go? Those investments. If you don't have that rainy day savings fund, I need to cash out my investments. Like we just set them up last month, but now you got to cash them out and maybe you're at a loss. And so it's so important to make sure you have that rainy day savings account. And if you already have that rainy day savings account, build up a little bit more that you can just have access to for other things in general, just so far as general saving is concerned.
Yeah, because you're talking about everybody's life. You take your car in for an oil change, they do the full review and come back and tell you you need brake pads, you need all these other things. Yes. And before you know it, you're $3,500 in. And the challenge is, do I get a new car or do I fix this one?
That's
you fix
right.
this one.
That's right.
Because $3,500 is a whole lot less than $60,000. So,
absolutely.
But you got to have the money to do that. Else it's one of those things that just gets worse. And undoubtedly on the coldest day of the year, your furnace is going to go out.
Yep.
On the hottest day of the year, your air conditioner is going to go out.
Yep.
And you need to be able to fix these things because this is real talk and real life that just happen.
Absolutely. So the more you can have set aside, the more you have an emergency reserve or just savings in general, the better off you'll be. You'll be able to kind of, when life starts lifing, as they say, you will be in a position to respond and not put yourself in a hole. So that's what this is all about.
It always gets in the way. And then if you got this money, what are you going to do with it?
Well, option 3. How about we start looking at some investing?
How about
right?
that?
Once we got that, we got that debt paid off a little bit. Once we got our emergency reserve, now you're in a position of talking about, let's start looking at some investments. And so this is my piece right here, investing. And this is what this is all about, wealth strategies. And so we got different ways that we can consider investing that money. So we can look at our existing retirement accounts that we have, everything from a 401k where you can bump up those contributions going into the plan because you got more money to work with. That's a way to do it. You can look at contributing to an IRA, individual retirement account you can set up on your own, working with a financial advisor or some institution like myself. It could be a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. That's something to do. You can look at investment accounts like stocks and bonds and mutual funds and ETFs and real estate and all these exciting, fun things that, we love to talk about. Well, now you're in a position to do it. Or even talk about, education savings. Maybe you got kids that you want to be able to save to go to college one day. Here is some quote unquote extra money. Maybe you can sock aside some of those dollars and be able to set them up right for a good college savings.
So in short, you're saying invest for the future. Do some things that are going to make life easier for you or yours.
Absolutely.
Down the road.
Invest for the future. And that's what this is all about. Wealth strategies, being able to set up ourselves now and set up the next generation for the future.
And Khomeini said, talk to someone like him. You want to talk to him. His number is 630-575-5046. I'll give it to you again before it's over. 630-575-5046. You want to talk to him, not somebody like him.
Appreciate that. Rufus.
Thinking about we appreciate you. Thinking about all these things, though, what are some of the other strategies that might make sense?
Yeah. And so, once we kind of taken care of the foundational things, right? We paid off some debt, we've done some savings, we've done some investing. Maybe now it's time to consider, thinking about just kind of the things about us that we want to do. And so how about a suggestion about investing in personal and professional growth? Think about things like skill development. Maybe that's a certification that you've been thinking about to put yourself in a better place so far as your job. Maybe there's some kind of IT certification, or maybe you want to get some kind of financial certification. Being able to use that money, because a lot of time those certifications do cost money. And so having this extra money, a couple thousand here, maybe that'll put you in a position to get that skill, get that certification, to put yourself in a better position to potentially make more money on the job and advance your career. So that's a consideration.
Invest in yourself.
Invest in yourself, absolutely. And maybe you want to think about some things like health and wellness. Maybe you've been, as a part of that New Year's resolution, maybe you want to get healthier. Maybe you want to join the gym, get a personal trainer, do things to really kind of put yourself in a better position health and wellness wise. And so using that money, not necessarily doing a monthly membership, but just, hey, let me just take this money and just pay off my membership for the whole year, not have to worry about it, or get myself a personal trainer, pay for, 6 sessions. It's really about just putting yourself in a better space. And so being able to use this as money to do so is really the key. So
good. So invest in yourself, in your health, in your future. What else might people want to do?
Yeah, so just a couple of more suggestions. How about making a charitable contribution?
Help somebody else.
Help somebody else. You weren't necessarily using this money for day-to-day expenses. So, once you're kind of taking care of the basics, how about just, using that money, find a charity, something that is passionate for you, something you're passionate about, being able to give back. And then you can also potentially have a tax write-off. So it's a win-win, being able to help someone else, another cause, and also being able to use it as a tax write-off for yourself for next year. That's a suggestion. And then how about taking some of that money and, again, investing in yourself? And so now that we've done all the fundamental things, now it's time to have some fun, Rufus.
It is okay to have fun.
It's okay to have fun.
You can build wealth and have fun.
That's right. You don't want to, you don't want to use it all, right? You don't want to take the whole thing and use it all, but it's okay to have fun. Maybe you want to travel somewhere, but maybe you want to take that trip to, some other a very warm place that we're thinking about right now in the middle of the cold. Right. Going on the beach somewhere. So being able to use that money to put yourself in a better place, literally. And so, yeah, it's okay to be able to use some of the money for leisure and thinking about setting aside for yourself. And so we generally say maybe take about 10-15% of that money and be able to use it just to enjoy yourself, because, the whole point is, you work hard, you want to play hard, have some balance in life, right?
So invest in yourself. Think about investing in leisure and treating yourself. I don't want to short shrift at all this charitable contribution part, because so often we benefited from somebody's charity along the way, and the ability to pay it back or pay it forward as it was is really important for us to do. And whether that's making contributions to your HBCU, the Boy Scouts. Oh, there's this Girl Scout troop down in Inglewood that's looking to sell out all these Girl Scout cookies. I need to talk about them. They were on TV a couple times yesterday. But, you can do a whole lot with a little that helps a lot of people in a number of ways. So don't ever pay short shrift to that part. As you're thinking about what to do with your money.
Absolutely. We're all standing on the shoulders of somebody else, and that's how we got here. So we have to be able to give back, help other people to get to where we are. And, people just need just a little lift. It doesn't take a lot, but a little can go a long way. And so every single week, every single day on WVON, there's a lot of organizations who would love that support. And obviously you talked about some, and so being able to use some of this money to be able to support other organizations is a wonderful thing.
Fantastic. What are we doing next week?
So next week, we're going to introduce a new segment within the segment. It's going to be called Hot Topics and Your Questions. And so what we'll do is, I've seen some of the questions from listeners kind of posted and kind of called in and kind of, just had questions. We're going to just address those on the show. We're going to be able to address those on the show, be able to answer some of those questions, and then just talk about a hot topic. What's going on in the news right now, financially, people need to know about. We're going to talk about that. So that's going to be the first of the month. Every month, we're going to introduce that.
Fantastic. And don't wait till the first to send in the questions so we can get ready for them as we come through. Make sure you do that. I want you all to, again, I mentioned it before, but Khomeini is giving good advice every week here on Wealth Strategies. Reach out to him. He is at 630-575-5046, or you can go to his website. It's WVONwealthshow.com, WVONwealthshow.com, and fill out a contact card or complete the Discovery Financial Survey to get started today. 630-575-5046 or WVONwealthshow.com to reach Khomeini. Khomeini?
Thank you, Rufus. I just want to say, it's a pleasure to be able to join you every single Tuesday and talk to the listeners and really talk about building wealth and, setting some strategies in place. So I look forward to this Tuesday check-in with your money every week. And so until next week, just want to tell everybody, enjoy your week. Have a great week. And thank you again for your time. And look forward to seeing everyone next week and hearing from everyone.
Always good to have you. Equitable Advisors, LLC, member FINRA and SIPC, a broker-dealer. Equitable Advisors, LLC, and SEC registered investment advisor. Khomeini, thank you so much for being here and all that you do. We appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
We're gonna leave it right here for today, ladies and gentlemen. It's been good to have the mayor join us at the top of the show. As I mentioned, had Speaker Walsh on the agenda. We'll get to him as soon as we can. Certainly good to hear about what was happening at Sinai Urban Health Institute. And nothing better than having somebody come in and talk to us about our money, which we need more of and need to keep it. So as always, Candace, thank you so much for giving us the information that gets us through the day. And Titus, thanks for keeping all this stuff together. I know it's a lot, and we kind of had our back and forth on how to do what to do, but we get it done. So I appreciate you for that. And ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, as I always do, as you go through the course of the day, you'll come across people who are dealing with things that you know absolutely nothing about. So please be kind. Always. And with that, C-Mac, tell us what's in the headlines, and T-Dub, take us home.
I'm Candace McCollum, and here are your news headlines. Air travelers starting to return to Chicago airports from violence in Mexico. Alderwoman Shirley Drewinski elected acting mayor after death of Christopher Clark. And Dick